So the one guy that they didn't get is the one who planted pipe bombs at the RNC in the back and the DNC. That's the one guy that they haven't gotten. It's an American. So, and now, 4 years later, they are summoning the public for help. 4 years later, they are releasing for the first time information, a video that they have never yet shared with the public. This is going to make you realize they're not confessing their incompetence. They are bragging about their unwillingness to do something about this. They're not confessing their incompetence to track this guy down. They're bragging about the fact that they think you are stupid. That the surveillance footage that they only now release 4 years later at a bit rate, a frame rate of 1 point whatever frames per second, you don't get security footage this bad anywhere on Earth in 2021. And somehow in the most secure, high-risk zone area in the world, DC, they've got 1980s level Russia dash cam potato footage of this guy. Listen, this is coming from the Associated Press. Play.
You're watching previously unreleased video.
Really? Previously unreleased? We're 4 years out, FBI. Previously unreleased? To whom? Did the January 6th committee see this? Did the January 6th committee decide to look into the pipe bomber who nearly pipe bombed the first Black Indian woman vice president in the history of America?
You're watching previously unreleased video of the mysterious person who planted pipe bombs outside the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees in Washington, D.C. a day before the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. The FBI is releasing the footage and more information in hopes of generating new tips.
4 years later,
authorities previously offered a reward of up to $500,000 for information leading to the suspect's arrest and conviction. Investigators estimate the unidentified suspect to be about 5 feet 7 inches tall.
Just so we're all clear, I'm 5'5.5". But if I were wearing this guy's shoes, I might be 5'7". What are those shoes, you might ask? Oh, don't worry. They know what the shoes are.
The most distinctive part of the suspect's outfit are a pair of black and gray Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes with a yellow logo. The FBI says fewer than 25,000 pairs of the same shoe were sold between August 2018 and January 2021. The pipe bombs were discovered about 17 hours after they were planted. Fortunately, nobody was hurt before the bombs were rendered safe, but the FBI says both devices could have been lethal.
Can we appreciate the absolute absurdity of this? If this were legit, this would be nothing more than an announcement of the utter incompetence of an agency. 4 years out, they've persecuted everyone under the sun. They geofenced, geolocated everyone who was within the vicinity of DC on that day. They put people on travel bans or on the Quad S flight because they were in the vicinity that day. This guy, they alleged, the FBI, I forget who, in the chief investigator, alleged that they couldn't geolocate this one individual because the cell company said his cellular data was corrupted and they could not geolocate this individual. Horseshit. By the way, the cell company came out afterwards and said, that's not true. They know the shoes.
Air Max Speed Turf shoes with a yellow logo. The FBI says fewer than 25,000 pairs of the same shoe were sold between August 2018 and January 2021.
Pause. That's a lot of shoes. I mean, it's not that many, but it's fewer than 25,000 were sold within a 3-year period. You could probably surmise that those shoes, depending on the cleanliness, are older than 2018. 25,000, let's say we can narrow it down to 20,000. The man is 5'7", so his feet are reasonably going to be, on the lower end, 7.5 men, and on the higher end, 10.5 men. How many of those 20,000 that are left are going to be size 7.5 to 10.5? The most likely size for that man, and they could probably even, in as much as they can measure my aorta when they go and do a CT scan, they could figure out the exact size of those shoes. Let's just say they can get it right down to a 9.5. And they can probably even get it down to a 9.5. Maybe even see if it's a wide, but Nike doesn't make wide shoes. A 9.5. They could narrow it down to probably 5,000 shoes. They could easily find out where those shoes were bought. No, I mean, and that's just me as a neurotic hypochondriac thinking about how they could narrow this down based on the shoes alone. This is not an announcement of incompetence. This is a bragging that 4 years later they have persecuted everybody they want to and have managed to let the only person who actually did something quasi-terroristic, because pipe bombs are qualified as a weapon of mass destruction. The only one who actually did weapon of mass destruction, they still can't find him. And they expect people to believe that. And so you'll go watch the Unusual Suspects. I talk about this was my segment on the Unusual Suspects. Many of you watching right now might not even know that there were 2 pipe bombs placed in 2 locations allegedly the day before. Darren J. Beatty from The Revolver, who's been on the channel twice, if not 3 times, talking about it. 2 pipe bombs allegedly planted the night before with a timer that only had a 60-minute timer on them. Allegedly only discovered the next day. Both, the one behind the RNC was in a dumpster in an alley behind the RNC, as best I remember. The one in front of the DNC, where Kamala Harris was, she wasn't at the Capitol, she was at the DNC. So this could have been a massive incident had it actually been detonated and actually been a live bomb, was found in the DNC under a bench. That's the guy that we saw putting it there. They were allegedly planted there the night before. They allegedly were there the night before and yet somehow went unnoticed by the Secret Service sweep and bomb dogs that went and secured the area. They had a 1-hour timer, which makes them utterly useless for a timing if you plant them the night before, which is 16 hours before the day of the certification of the vote. And both of them were discovered within 15 minutes of each other, within 15 minutes of each other, and within 15 minutes of the shit popping off at the Capitol. When the pipe bomb, do I have the video on the back? I think I have it. I went over this with Darren. Here, this is, I'll just play, yeah, you know what? I'll play it as we talk. Let me just minimize this again and maximize that. The pipe bomb that was randomly noticed by an individual who we do not know. I was listening to Darren Beatty, just to refresh my memory, on Benny Johnson. I went over this with Darren J. Beatty. An individual randomly, after this has been around for allegedly 16 hours, sweep and everything, allegedly discovers it like 15, 20 minutes before the breach of the Capitol. Within 15 minutes of the other one being discovered, they don't know who discovered it. I don't believe that they examined the guy who discovered it, deposed him, arrested him, because typically the people who find the bombs are oftentimes the ones who place the bombs. Much in the way that, you know, the spouse that reports a spouse missing is typically responsible for the spouse having gone missing. They warn the cops that there's a bomb there. Let me see where the kids are. The part where I think it's 6 minutes in. When is it where the kids, here, a group of children. Yeah, here you go. After they've been notified that there's a bomb under the bench, a group of children are allowed to walk by what is purported to be an active bomb, pipe bomb, right there. No panic, no nothing. And 4 years later, the FBI is putting out a video saying, yeah, guys, we really want the public's help with this because we can't find the bomber. We've done everything else. They're not confessing, they're bragging. It's unbelievable. And listening, it was Darren Beatty on Benny Johnson. It was about a year ago. It was early in 2024. Talking about, like, yeah, this is it. The lid has been blown off, pun intended, the pipe bomb inside job, because none of it makes any sense. It simply does not make sense. The FBI confirmed that the devices could have been lethal, and I make the joke that, they could have been lethal. Yeah, if you take a pipe and hit someone over the head with it, it could be lethal. The bombs themselves looked eerily like the FBI training bombs. Here, look at this. January 6th pipe bomb images. They look eerily like what the FBI uses for training purposes. Look at this thing. 3 years later, the Jan 6 pipe bomb is still mystery unsolved. It's got a 1-hour timer on a pipe bomb with a little capsule, both discovered within 15 minutes, and they did not bother to detain and interrogate the individual who found the one under the bench, alerted the police, who did jack squat for 5 minutes except for let children walk by it. And Kamala Harris, who's tied for being among the biggest political whores on the planet. And I don't mean whore literally, I mean like metaphorically, in terms of milking crisis for political profit, never mentions anything about it, induces Congress into error by suggesting that she was at the Capitol and not at the DNC. If an extreme MAGA Republican had tried to detonate a pipe bomb in the vicinity of Kamala Harris, you would never have heard the end of it if it in fact legitimately occurred. And so the theory is, what's his face there, Officer Sund, believes that this might have been the pretext, the discovery of these 2 pipe bombs to divert police force, which is already depleted at the Capitol, away from the Capitol, thus facilitating the insurrection, that this was the ploy to make that happen. But they didn't really realize that by letting them in already, you sort of facilitated the breach. You don't need this bullshit pretext in the first place. So they're trying to cover it up. Or it was some other agency setting up a false flag and they wanted to cover it up because it was so badly done. The bottom line, 4 years out, and the FBI is releasing new footage after the January 6th committee has already thoroughly investigated everything about January 6th except for the pipe bombs. The Vegas guy who's, look, as far as incidents go, it's not it's the least important of the last big 5. It's less, I hate to put a value on the importance of press conferences for terror updates. It is less important than the New Orleans terror attack, which I don't believe they've had a press conference that was that thorough, except for that jackass DEI FBI hire who comes out and says it's not a terrorist attack. And with the other jackass FBI agents who came out and said, yep, he didn't act alone. We have video surveillance of other suspects planting IEDs throughout New Orleans prior to the attack. Oh, then they came out and after and said, yeah, it was a terrorist attack. And no, there weren't any other accomplices. They haven't had a press conference like this for the New Orleans attack. I don't believe they've had a press conference like this for the Ukrainian-inspired would-be assassin at Mar-a-Lago. They certainly have not had a press conference like this for Butler. In fact, we know more about, what's his name? Livelsberger? Than we do about Crooks. We've got a freaking walkthrough of the New Orleans terrorist's house, whereas they cordoned off the Butler assassination attempt and murder. They cordoned off that house like it was the effing plague.